Good morning, students. In the last class, we already discussed about the chromatography. So next we'll continue. The next one is physical factors of separation. Physical factors of separation, some factors are affected on the process of chromatography. That factors are mobile phase composition, stationary phase, pressure, temperature. So variation of these all four factors will affect the process of chromatography. We will not get the purified component. So again, in the last class we discussed about the paper chromatography, and second one will start now, that is column chromatography. It is a solid liquid chromatography. Chromatography is a technique to separate the individual components from the mixture. So in this case of column chromatography, to separate the individual components from the mixture through a column or with the help of column, that is why it is termed as a column chromatography. It is one of the methods to separate the solids and liquids. The main principle of the column chromatography is the separation technique by using a glass column. Is packed with solid stationary phase and mobile phase is continuously flowing through the column. See the simple diagram of the column chromatography. They will take the glass column and at the bottom it is stopcock. Above the stopcock they will place the cotton, that is called as a cotton plug, because whatever fluid it is filled in the glass column, it cannot go through the glass column. That is why they will place the cotton plug. And again, next, stationary phase, that is solid stationary phase, that is called as the adsorbent. It may be silica gel or alumina. They will pour in the glass column. Above that glass column, the sample or the mixture of the components. So that we want to separate the components, that we will place above the stationary phase. That above the mixture they will place the sand, the powdered sand they will place above the mixture. And at the last one it is a mobile phase, that is called as a solvent. It may be hexane or ethyl acetate, any one solvent they will pour above there, that is called as a eluent. And also the flask is placed at the bottom to collect the components from the glass column. So we saw how the apparatus it will be set up in a column chromatography and how it will work. So the things we will add or will put in the glass tube. So here when we will add these things, the solvent it will flows through the glass column and the mixture of the components it will get separated. It will absorb on the stationary phase. Then we will get the bands of that components. We will separate the components. We will get the bands. We will see the bands in the glass column. So when it will reaches at the bottom, we will collect the components in the conical flask. Like this, they will separate the components from the column chromatography. So here again we will collect the flask. That solution or that component is called as a eluate. It means the whatever thing or the fluid is washed out from the glass column, that is called as a eluate, and the fluid is placed or entering into the glass column, that is called as a eluent. Then again in this process, the washing out of component through the column using suitable solvent. The process washing out of the component through the suitable solvent, that process is called as a elution. A simple example for column chromatography, that a mixture of plant pigments like chlorophyll, xanthophyll, carotene, these pigments will get mixed with it, and this mixture of the pigments will dissolve in a solvent. Then after that components or mixtures will placed in a glass column. Then above that we will add the pure solvent, that is the mobile phase. When it will mix with the, or it will flows through the mixture, that solvent, it will flows through the mixture, and that mixture of that pigments, they will get absorbed on the stationary phase, like green band, yellow band, orange band we will see in the glass column. Like this we can identify the separation of that pigments. Then which component or pigment, absorbed pigment, it will come at the bottom of the glass column. So when it will reaches at the bottom of the glass column, we will collect in the conical flask that pigment, it will be get separated. Like this, these pigments or components we can separate from the mixtures. Next one is the flame photometry or flame emission spectrum. In this we will study about the introduction, principle and the instrumentation. Before we will start the introduction of this flame photometry, in that it is also called as the atomic emission spectroscopy. It is based on the measurement of intensity of light emitted when a metal is introduced into a flame. It means when the metal sample is introduced on a flame, we'll see the color of the flame and the intensity of the color of the flame. We can identify which element is present, and intensity of color we can measure how much amount of element is present. So again, it is an instrument. In this it is used inorganic chemical analysis to determine the concentration of certain metal ions like sodium, potassium, calcium, lithium, etc. So by this, with the help of this flame photometry, we can identify the metals. Why the inorganic chemicals they are used in a flame photometry? Because organic compounds are not emitted in a radiation, that is why the organic compounds are not detected. Okay, the definition of this flame photometry, it is the branch of spectroscopy in which the species examined in a spectrometer are in the form of atoms. With the help of spectrometer, they can identify which element is present. So finally, it is the flame photometry. It is defined as, it is a branch of spectroscopy which is examined in the spectrometer in the form of atoms. It is called as a flame photometry. So what is the meaning of spectroscopy? Spectroscopy, it is a branch of science concerned with the investigation and measurement of spectra produced when a matter is interact with or emitted electromagnetic radiation. That is called as a spectroscopy. The principle of the flame photometry is, when a liquid sample containing a metal salt is introduced into a flame, the process involved in the flame photometry are, it means the liquid solution is containing metal salt, so that solution, it will put it on a flame. What is the process it will happen? We'll see the step by step. In that first step, it is the solvent is vaporized, leaving particles of the solid salt. The solvent part in the liquid solution, that it will get evaporated, and remaining it will be solid salt. The second one is the salt is vaporized or converted into a gaseous state. The remaining salt, it will be get evaporized or it is burnt to form a gaseous form. So that solid part, it will burnt in a flame and it is converted into gaseous form. And the remaining part, third step, the part of or all of the gaseous molecules are progressively disassociated to give free materials, atoms or radicals. The remaining part of the solution, that is converted into a free radicals or free items, free materials, we can say. The fourth one, the neutral items are excited by the thermal energy of the flame. It means the heat of the flame to giving part, it will be excited to a higher energy level, emit to a photon. Here the excited atoms which are unstable quickly emits a photon. When it will reach its excited state, the unstable, and it will emit to a photon again and return to a lower energy state. It will be returned to a lower energy state. That atoms, it will be returned to a lower energy state. The wavelength of that atom or light intensity of that atom, it will be recorded. By recording this wavelength, we can measure the how much amount of element is present in the sample by the help of this flame photometry. Okay, in the next class we will discuss about the instrumentation of flame photometry and the determination of potassium and sodium and applications of the flame photometry. Thank you.